I never thought one night could split your life into before and after, but that's exactly what happened to me. Before I begin, a quick question. If someone you trusted with your whole heart betrayed you, would you walk away quietly, or would you make them pay? Think about that, and while you do, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I honestly love seeing how far these stories travel. My name is Sophia, I'm 25 years old. And this is the story of how a life I trusted completely turned into a plan for revenge so patient it would make the seasons jealous. I grew up in a noisy neighborhood where neighbors borrowed sugar and secrets in equal measure. My best friend, Zoe, lived 3 houses down. We were inseparable from middle school through late nights in college. Zoe was the kind of person who could light up a room. Confident, stylish, magnetic. I admired her the way people admire fireworks. Beautiful and briefly blinding. Then there was Noah. I met him in our 3rd year at university. We fell into it like a comfortable song. Steady, dependable, the kind of man who remembers birthdays and fixes leaky taps. He supported my late nights of studying, celebrated my small wins, whispered that one day he would be the kind of husband who made me feel safe. I believed him. I believed them both. Everything cracked on a Tuesday. I was juggling 3 client files and a presentation that could change my career. Noah called to say work ran late and asked me to pick up sushi and bring it to his place. I left my office early so I could surprise him, imagining his smile. On impulse, I stopped by Zoe's apartment to drop off my spare keys. She'd accidentally locked herself out last week and I'd made a mental note to pass them on. Her door was ajar. Laughter drifted out in the warm night air. I walked in without knocking. They looked like a photograph taken in the middle of a dream I'd been living. Noah with an arm around Zoe, Zoe's head tilted close, both of them laughing as if they had a lifetime of private jokes I'd never be part of again. Their eyes met mine, and for a moment there was a flinch, an awkward stutter in the room's rhythm. Zoe's smile wavered, then hardened. Noah's face went white. Neither of them explained. Neither of them moved toward me. They stood, guilty and inert, like actors caught mid-rehearsal. I didn't shout. I didn't throw things. What I did was colder. I turned, walked out, and left the city lights and the noise of their laughter behind. That silence that night was a decision. It was quiet, but it wasn't surrender. Sitting alone in my car, feeling the weight of their betrayal, something inside me switched from hurt to calculation. I told myself then that I would not be the side character in the story they wrote about me. I would write the last chapter. For a week I did nothing visible. I answered texts with short, neutral words. I showed up at work and smiled. I posted photos of sunsets on Instagram like nothing had happened. Behind that everyday mask I was gathering truths. Not because I wanted to humiliate them in front of friends, but because I wanted the kind of revenge that maps the weak spots of a life and quietly removes them. I had to be surgical. Heat spoils meat. Revenge needs cold precision. I started with Zoe because she was the easier target. Zoe had spent years building an online persona. It was her currency. She paraded chic dinners and girl boss quotes, but the facade was thinner than velvet. She had borrowed thousands from friends, maxed out credit cards, and borrowed designs that weren't hers. Once you know someone's lies, you can find the paper trails. I discovered late payment notices, whispered complaints in supplier groups, and email exchanges where she begged for more time. I didn't hack anything. I watched, I saved public receipts. I saved messages she had forgotten to delete from a cloud account we'd shared briefly years ago. Noah was trickier. He worked at a boutique investment firm where reputation meant everything. He dazzled clients with smooth presentations and made me believe every number was as honest as the vows one day we might say. But people who build empires on performance tend to slip. A misplaced invoice, a careless forwarded email, an old hard drive left in a repair shop. The world gives you small openings if you look. I found an old thumb drive Noah had left in my glove compartment the week he'd borrowed my car. It had spreadsheets, draft contracts, and a folder labeled Client Adjustments. Inside were notes about shifting small amounts through offshore intermediaries to smooth revenue. I felt cold and hot at the same time, exposed and empowered. I laid a plan, and for every step I took, I waited like a hunter. Step 1 was to make them feel the paranoia. I leaked an anonymous tip to a financial journalist who had written about our city's boutique firms before. I forwarded him the invoices, but anonymously. Not a smear campaign, just evidence. The journalist asked for confirmation, then ran a preliminary inquiry. Within days, Noah's partner was asking questions. Whisper networks in the finance world began to murmur. I watched the fine mask of his professional life begin to crack. Meanwhile, I let Zoe's follower base erode on its own. I created a handful of burner accounts and began posting insider receipts and supplier messages in quiet corners of fashion forums. The internet is an animal that loves blood. Conversations started in group chats, then leaked to influencers with louder voices. Within a month, brands that had been cozy with Zoe began to rethink partnerships. A sponsor quietly backed out. A boutique she'd relied on stopped shipping. The person who had smiled the brightest in my living room started to call me, pleading and slurring apologies. I didn't answer. Silence, I had learned, did the work of revelation just as effectively as any confession. But revenge becomes art when you make them dismantle themselves. Neutral chaos is one thing. Precision that splits them apart is another. I decided to plant seeds that would turn their alliance into a fight. I crafted fake messages, plausible but not obviously fabricated, and slipped them into places they would discover. A whisper in Noah's ear from a fabricated friend about Zoe's other dates. A fake screenshot to Zoe suggesting Noah had been funneling money to someone else. I kept it believable, not melodramatic, because people fall apart under realistic pressure. And fall apart they did. Small arguments about money swelled into accusations. Accusations became loud nights. Zoe's insecurity made her clamp tighter. Noah's pride made him lash out. They started missing meetings, missing deadlines, showing up disheveled to the photo shoots they'd once owned. The world that had admired them for superficial cohesion began to notice the tremors. There were nights where I sat on my balcony and watched the city breathe, where I wondered if I had become what I despised, a cruel architect, and still I continued. Because revenge, once begun, doesn't undo the nights you spent shivering alone. Just returns the favor. The crescendo came unexpectedly. Noah's firm launched a formal review after an anonymous whistleblower sent a stack of documents to the regulatory authority. They contacted his office, then him. His calls to me were short, angry, pleading. He begged me to meet, to talk, to remember the good. I listened and offered nothing. He showed up at my door once, coat askew, eyes frantic. Sophia, please. I made mistakes at work, but I love you. I didn't mean for this to happen. I let him recite his excuses like a prayer, and when it finished I said only this. You loved me as a comfort. You loved her as a thrill. You loved neither. His face crumpled in a way that made me feel a sharp, unwelcome pity. But still I didn't relent. Zoe tried another approach. She showed up at my office, hands wringing, voice high with panic. Sophia, please. I'll pay you back. I'll apologize. Please don't ruin me. Don't make me lose everything. She was small and human in that moment, mascara half-run. And for a second I saw the girl who once taught me how to braid hair. I remembered being teenagers on her couch, promising to be each other's ride or die. And for a second I almost told her the truth, that I knew everything, that I had orchestrated the fall that devoured her. But I didn't. I said, you made your choices. I walked away. I will not lie. There were nights where the victory tasted bitter. There is a hollowness in watching someone you loved collapse, even if they deserved it. I lay awake thinking about the person I had been before they betrayed me, wondering if I had traded my soul for a script of power and retribution. But then a different thought came. I hadn't wanted to be the one they walked on. I reclaimed myself by dismantling what had been used against me. The aftermath was gradual. Noah lost a client after another, then his partner froze him out. He left the city under a quiet cloud of shame and quiet threats from men who did not forgive. Zoe's online persona turned into a sad footnote. cancelled deals, angry refund posts, and brands who scrubbed their endorsements to avoid association. They flailed, they pleaded, they tried to rebuild. The world moved on like it always does, but when they stepped out in the morning sunlight now, there were fewer smiles to catch. And me. I moved forward not because revenge healed me but because I chose myself. I took the promotion I'd been angling toward and used it to change industries, to build something that would not hinge on the whims of others. I surrounded myself with friends who had quiet integrity. I learned to date slowly, to trust little, to keep certain parts of myself private. The scars, both visible and invisible, stayed. But they were mine, not gifts from anyone else. Years later, I sometimes think about the night I stood outside room 312 and how small and irreplaceable that feeling of being betrayed felt then. Now that pain has a different shape. It is a marker of survival. I don't recommend designing someone's downfall as a hobby. It is messy. It is morally complex. But if you ever find yourself looking at the people you loved and realizing that they were trading your safety for something shallow and cruel, know this: you have agency. You can be quiet and let karma do its work, or you can quietly collect the facts and take back what was stolen. The path is yours to choose. So tell me, if you were in my shoes, would you have walked away and let life take its course, or would you have done what I did and taken revenge into your own hands? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from and how you would respond. And if this story gripped you even a little, hit like, subscribe, and stay with me, because the next story I bring will test the lines between justice and vengeance even more.